Hello and welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. With us now in the studio is Connie Mack IV, currently a congressman from the state of Florida. It's great to have you with us.
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So tell us, you're running for Senate right now. How's the campaign going?
Things are looking great. You know, we got in the race November 28th. Since then, we've been building an organization around the state and raising money. And, you know, a campaign is about resources. It's about people and money. And so we're putting those two things together. And right now, we're leading in the polls in the primary. We've got about a 30-point lead over our closest primary opponent. In the general, we've got a healthy lead against Nelson, and I think that reflects Senator Nelson likes to, you know, talk a good game when he's here in Florida, but he votes as a lockstep liberal in Washington, and people have had it with that kind of politician.
Now, right now, you are facing George Lemieux and Mike McAllister. What makes you the best Republican candidate to go face-to-face and head-to-head with Bill Nelson?
Well, again, I think the polls bear out that we're best situated to take on Senator Nelson, but I think the reason is because I've been very straightforward with the people of the state of Florida, the people of my district, that we've got real problems here in America, and this isn't a time for partisan bickering. We need to believe in our Constitution, we need to believe in America, and that means fighting to balance the budget, making sure that our military is strong so we can be secure, not just here in America, but around the world. So these are big challenges, and that's what people are looking for us to face. I've got a plan to balance the budget. I serve on the Foreign Relations Committee and got a good record there. So I think people understand that I'm someone who will shoot straight with them, and I'm looking for solutions, not just a compromise for compromise's sake.
We'll talk about your fiscal plan and your service on the Foreign Relations Committee in just a second, but I want to talk about that Rasmussen poll you mentioned. You have a 7-point lead against Bill Nelson. What is the biggest difference between you and Bill Nelson?
Well, this is an easy one. Senator Nelson is a big government, central planning, liberal Democrat. He believes that the answer to all of our problems is more government control in our lives. Basically what he's saying is he doesn't believe in you. He doesn't believe in the people of America. He believes in that his ideas are better than any idea you could come up with for you or for your family. I'm the opposite. I believe in the individual. I believe that people ought to be able to make the best decisions for themselves and for their families, not government. So, you know, Nelson supports Obama 98% of the time. 98% of the time he votes with President Obama. That is a staggering number. So whether it's Obamacare or the stimulus, or most recently with the Keystone XL pipeline, Senator Nelson voted against an amendment that would have allowed for the construction of the pipeline after he got a phone call from President Obama. We've had it with that kind of politics. I think the people of the state of Florida want someone who, again, who's going to come up with real solutions and ideas and not play politics with them.
What do you think the biggest issue that Florida voters care about and the issue that you'll have the most impact on and effect on when you get to Senate?
I think it's jobs, the economy, and the debt. I mean, this is what people are concerned about. This is what people are talking about as I travel around the state of Florida. People talk about jobs and what are we going to do to create jobs. And I like to point out that it's not government that creates jobs, it's the risk takers, it's the individuals of this state and this country. And right now we have a government that is saddling these entrepreneurs with regulation and taxation to the point where it's difficult for them to continue just to stay in business, much less expand. And I'll give you an example. In my district, there's a small business that wanted to expand. It's a boat building business, and they wanted to expand. Boat building business isn't doing that well right now, so they wanted to expand their business. They started going through the process. How much was Obamacare going to cost them and how to comply with those regulations? What was the tax structure going to be? Is the tax cuts, Bush tax cuts, going to expire or not? What is, you know, they can't do long-term planning. There were 31 different regulations and permitted fees that this company had to get just to grow their business. You know, we ought to respect and trust the entrepreneur and the risk takers and take this big government kind of mentality off of their shoulders and let them do what they do, which is expand businesses, create opportunities for our neighbors and our friends. And so, you know, I think that's going to be how we're going to tackle these issues.
A recent op-ed in the Wall Street Journal written by Dick Armey and Matt Kibbe of FreedomWorks said you were, quote, the most able fiscal conservative. What does that kind of endorsement do for your campaign?
Well, I think it's fantastic. They've done a lot of great work. FreedomWorks has done a lot of great work in organizing people and having a solid message. And I just look forward to working with them and working with the thousands of people across the state of Florida who want to see, you know, a different direction in Washington. They want to get off the road to grease and on the road to prosperity, and that's what FreedomWorks and Dick Armey and that's what they stand for. And so it was a pleasant surprise to see that in the newspaper, and I look forward to working with them.
Well, there have been, of course, several very important budget proposals pitched in the House of Representatives this year, and a lot of them get a lot of talk. Your plan is called the penny plan. What would the federal government and the U.S. economy look like if the penny plan were the rule of law in the United States?
We would balance the budget in 8 years. None of the other budget plans out there are that aggressive to where they balance the budget within a 10-year window. Even Ryan's plan takes 24 years to balance the budget. We can't wait that long. We have to do something now. And you know, my plan is very simple, and I like to joke that it's so simple that even members of Congress can understand it. What we do is we cut 1% of spending a year for 6 years. And so for people who are watching, that's only 1 penny out of every federal dollar. This is not a draconian cut, but it's a realistic cut that puts us in a direction that balances our budget in 8 years. We cap spending at 18% of GDP in the 7th year. This way we have revenues matching spending, which is how you balance a budget. It makes sense. Everybody at home has had to do this. Everybody in their business life have had to do this. And the federal government should be required to do the same thing. The trick here is, in Washington, you hear about baseline spending. And the baseline, they try to make people believe that a baseline is flat, that every year, you know, if you stick to the baseline, that it's going to be the same spending every year. In Washington, a baseline, it actually is an increase in spending of 5 to 7% every year. So we're going to take that increased spending out, cut 1% a year, and balance the budget in 8 years. And you know, this gets us in a position to where then we can start paying off the debt. And right now, you know, my kids, our grandkids, are going to be in a position and saddled with this 15, 17, 20 trillion dollars of debt. Imagine this. Every youngster out there right now, imagine saying to your kids that you need to work hard, you need to go to school, you need to get a good job, and oh, by the way, when you get that good job, the government is going to have to take such a large percentage in taxes just to pay off the debt of what we're spending today. That is not what we want to leave for America.
Well, in addition to your plan, of course, there's the Republican Study Committee's Cut, Cap, and Balance plan. And you talked about Paul Ryan's Path to Prosperity plan. And they're all different in one way. Now, is there any friction among the GOP House members about how to best balance this budget, or is there a consensus, or is this just part of the process to honing in on the best way forward?
Of course there's friction. We all have ideas, and we want to bring our ideas to the forefront, but we are all working on the same goal, and that is to balance the budget. You know, I support the Cut, Cap, and Balance. I was one of the first members to sign on to Cut, Cap, and Balance. But I opposed the bill when it came up on the floor because it also increased the debt ceiling by $2.4 trillion. I think we need to make these cuts immediately. And if we want to, you can't say you're going to balance the budget and at the same time raise the debt ceiling. So I like the Cut, Cap, and Balance. Paul Ryan's budget is a good start. I think a lot of the reforms in some of the entitlement programs, it's important that we have that discussion and we move forward on real reforms. The part that I don't like about it is it takes 20 to 24 years to balance. I don't think we have that much time to wait. And the idea that we're going to end up with a $22 trillion debt, we can't afford that. We can't afford to continue to have 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 trillion in deficits every year.
When the debt ceiling debate does come up, and some people say that if we don't do this, there's going to be grave impacts on the economy, the U.S. credit rating could get downgraded. What do you say to those folks who say we have no choice, we have to raise the debt ceiling?
I'd say to them, well, look what happened when we raised the debt ceiling last time. What happened? We got downgraded. Look, if the federal government was an individual, that individual wouldn't be able to get a credit card, because the debt to income ratio is out of whack. So, you know, it's not about raising the debt ceiling, it's about cutting spending. I'll give you some examples. Amtrak, there's no reason why the federal government should be continuing to pay for Amtrak. Public broadcasting, there's no reason why the federal government should continue to fund public broadcasting. the National Endowments of the Arts. There are programs like these in the federal government that the people don't want, need, or deserve, and they want to see us make those cuts. So I don't buy into the argument that we have to continue to raise the debt ceiling. We ought to be instead having a conversation of what can we do to lower the cost of government? What can we do to cut spending? I'll give you an example of one of the things that I'd like to see us do. I'd like to see us put forward a 2-year repeal Congress, where all we do is we talk about and pass repeal legislation. So we obviously can start with Obamacare and Dodd-Frank, but I'd like every member of Congress to be up in Washington thinking about what bills could we repeal that'll shrink the size of government, that'll put back the trust in the entrepreneur and the risk takers and the families of this country, instead of going to Washington with the next idea of how to grow government. I think it would be a tremendous change in the paradigm in Washington, D.C., and it would be good for America.
I'm guessing that Obamacare is 1A and the Dodd-Frank is 1B on your list of laws you'd like to see repealed. What is the next law that you would like to see repealed?
I would repeal the law that gave the agencies and departments the authority in rulemaking and basically write their own laws. I think we need to hold members of Congress accountable for all of these rules and laws that are passed through agencies and departments with bureaucrats. So that is one I think it would slow down the pace of government growth, and we could actually return government back to a small position in our society instead of this large position it has now. So that would be another one. But again, I think we look at regulations, we look at taxes, we look at spending, and we get our fiscal house in order so America can grow and continue to be, the hope of the earth.
There seems to be a pretty dark cloud hanging over Washington right now, aside from all the stuff in the news today. Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke has warned about this fiscal cliff that we're coming up on here, with large tax increases looming, big spending cuts looming. They all take effect on the first day of 2013. Are lawmakers talking about this in Washington right now? And do you see any scenario in which the Bush tax cuts will get addressed, the sequestration will get addressed before the election, so it doesn't come down to a lame duck session of Congress?
Well, I mean, if you look at the history in the Congress, you would say the answer to that is no. It's not going to get done before the election, and there will be a lame duck session. And that'll all depend on what happens in that lame duck. Will all depend on the outcome of the election in November. So that's one of those things that we have to wait and see what happens. But not to continue the tax cuts, the Bush tax cuts, would be a disaster for our economy. The idea that somehow we can have all these huge cuts in defense, but yet still have a military that's going to be strong enough to defend America is a joke. I think the super committee itself was a joke. That is not we should have done our job the first time. But the idea that you're going to take a group of people who apparently couldn't do their job and you're going to pull out of it a small group of them to try to do the job doesn't make any sense. What we should have done is said, we're not leaving until we get something worked out, instead of punting to the super committee. So these are the types of things I think that the people of the state of Florida have said enough is enough. We've had it with this type of politics.
And what do you think the environment would be like amongst lawmakers in Washington during that 45-day lame duck session, knowing that things have to get done? Do you think it would be cooperative, or do you think it would be very antagonistic?
Well, it's always antagonistic. I mean, look, you've got the liberals in Washington, Obama and Nelson, who believe that in a completely different direction than what I believe in. And when I hear people all the time say, well, you need to compromise, I'm not willing to compromise just so I can come back to the state of Florida and say, I compromised. I mean, it's about solutions. It's about getting something done. So I'm okay with the fact that we can have these debates and arguments. But at the end of the day, we need to come up with solutions, not just a bargain, a grand bargain that we keep hearing about. So it'll be rough and tumble for sure.
Well, you also, of course, serve on the House Foreign Relations Committee, and the chair of that committee, Ileana Ros-Lehtinen, has said that we need to apply maximum pressure to both Iran and to Syria. But at this point, what else can be done to increase that pressure?
Well, first of all, I think it's very important that the president stop begging other leaders of other countries for more time and flexibility. You know, the president just this past week, speaking to the president of Russia with an open mic, basically was begging for their help for a re-election. I mean, can you imagine someone like Ronald Reagan, who was bold and strong and stood in front of a wall and said, tear down this wall, and now we have a president that's begging with the president of Russia for his own re-election campaign? This is the problem that we have in foreign affairs and around the world. The problem is that Obama has been so weak in his defense of Israel that it has allowed Iran to grow. Iran does not question or slow down or pause at all in the thought of its nuclear program because they see a weak president. So we need to have a president who will be strong, who won't let any daylight between the United States and Israel in the defense of freedom, whether it's here at home or around the world.
All right, very good. Congressman Connie Mack, if you want to let the viewers know where they can go to check out more and to learn more about your Senate campaign, your website is?
ConnieMack.com, and we've also got a petition on the website for the Keystone XL pipeline. This is a vitally important issue, and Obama and Nelson are continuing to play politics, so go to the website, ConnieMack.com, sign our petition to tell Nelson and Obama either do the right thing or get out of the way so we can get this pipeline built.
All right, very good. Connie Mack, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.